Ryan Walker was 27 years old when his entire life collapsed. His business had failed, his bank account was almost empty, his total debt reached 100. Every morning he woke up to missed calls from banks and collection agencies. Everyone told him the same thing: you should declare bankruptcy. But Ryan wasn't ready to give up. One night he wrote in his notebook, "One day I will turn 100 into 100. He had no idea how. He only knew he had to keep going. Every morning started exactly the same. He reached for his phone before opening his eyes. 10 missed calls, 5 emails marked urgent, 3 payment reminders. His monthly loan payment alone was larger than most people earned in a year. He opened his banking app, checking account, 427.81 business account. Frozen, Ryan quietly put the phone back on the table. For a long time, he simply stared at the ceiling. Just 12 months earlier, he had been interviewed as one of the fastest growing young entrepreneurs in the city. Now he couldn't even afford breakfast. He walked into his office. The reception area was empty. The company logo still hung on the wall, but almost everything else had disappeared. The desks had been sold. The computers had been sold. Even the coffee machine had been listed for sale online. Only silence remained. His accountant arrived carrying another folder. "I have bad news," she said. Ryan laughed quietly. "I don't think there's any good news left." She opened the report. Another supplier had filed a lawsuit. Interest on one of the loans had increased. Late payment penalties were added overnight. Without earning a single dollar, his debt had already grown by thousands. Ryan signed the documents without saying a word. At lunchtime, he walked into a grocery store. He looked at the prices for several minutes. Then he returned half of the items to the shelf: bread, peanut butter, instant noodles. That was enough for the week. While paying, his credit card was declined. The cashier politely asked if he wanted to try another card. Ryan smiled awkwardly and paid with the last cash in his wallet. Outside, rain started falling. He had no umbrella. He walked back to the office anyway. His shoes were completely wet by the time he arrived. That evening he checked his email again. Another investor had officially withdrawn from the company. A client canceled a contract worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. One employee sent a message: "I am sorry, Ryan, I found another job. I can't wait any longer." Ryan typed a reply: "I understand. I wish you the best." He pressed send. The office became even quieter. As night fell, he spread a blanket across the small couch in the meeting room. The building security guard walked past and asked, "Still here?" Ryan smiled. For now, the guard nodded and continued his rounds. Ryan opened his notebook once more. On the first page, the sentence was still there: "One day I will turn 100 into 100. He looked at it for several minutes. Then he grabbed a pen and began filling page after page with ideas. Online software, digital products, business automation, tools, subscription services, marketplace platforms. Most of them sounded impossible. Some sounded ridiculous. But he kept writing until sunrise, because even though he had almost no money left, $1 million in debt, and nobody believed in him anymore, he still refused to stop thinking about a way forward. And that decision would become the first real investment of his new journey. Ryan sold everything he owned: his car, his expensive watch, his furniture. He moved into a tiny shared apartment and slept on an old mattress. To survive, he delivered food during the day and worked in a warehouse at night. Between shifts, he spent every free minute learning programming and business strategy from free online videos. People laughed at him. They said his dreams were impossible. Ryan ignored them. Every day followed the same routine. His alarm rang at 5:00 a.m. He grabbed a cup of cheap instant coffee, put on an old jacket, and started delivering food across the city. Sometimes he worked for hours before eating his first meal. Most customers never looked at him. They simply took their bags, closed the door, and moved on with their day. By the afternoon, Ryan headed to the warehouse. For 8 hours, he carried heavy boxes, organized shipments, and loaded trucks. His hands became rough and covered with small cuts. His back hurt constantly. But every paycheck mattered. Every dollar helped him survive another week. At night, While everyone else was sleeping, Ryan opened his old laptop. The screen had a crack across one corner, and the battery lasted less than 20 minutes, so he always kept it plugged in. He watched free programming tutorials, then marketing lessons, then finance classes. Sometimes he studied until 3 or 4 in the morning. After sleeping only a few hours, he repeated the same routine again. His tiny apartment was shared with 3 strangers. The bedroom was so small that his mattress barely fit on the floor. There was no desk, no office, no privacy. He used an upside-down cardboard box as a table and balanced his laptop on top of it. Every month he wrote his finances in a notebook. Rent, $450, food, $180, internet, $35 minimum loan payments, almost everything else. Some weeks he had less than $20 left. One evening his mother called. "Ryan, are you okay?" He looked around the empty room. A mattress, a backpack, a laptop, 2 shirts hanging on the wall. "I am fine," he answered. "I am just working." Didn't he tell her that he sometimes skipped dinner to save money? Didn't he tell her that collection agencies called him every single day? Didn't he tell her that he still owed $1 million? Months passed. Ryan slowly became better at programming. He built simple websites, then small business tools. Most of them failed. One project attracted only 3 users. Another earned just $11 in an entire month. A third completely crashed on its first day. Every failure cost him time he couldn't afford to lose. Friends sent messages asking him to get a normal office job. Former business partners told him to stop chasing impossible dreams. Even strangers online left comments saying, "You are wasting your life. Nobody starts over after losing $1 million. Just declare bankruptcy and move on." Ryan read every comment. Then he closed the app and opened his code editor again. Late one rainy night, after finishing another warehouse shift, he sat in front of his laptop and looked at the notebook where he had written his goal months earlier. 1, 0, 0, 100. 0, 0, it still seemed impossible. He had no investors, no employees, no office, no savings, only knowledge that was growing a little every single day. Ryan smiled quietly, opened a blank document, and started writing down a new business idea. Didn't know it yet, but that simple idea would become the first real step toward changing his entire future. While delivering packages, Ryan noticed that many small businesses still manage their inventory using spreadsheets. Some owners spent hours every day updating numbers by hand. Others lost orders because files were deleted or information was entered incorrectly. One afternoon, while waiting for a customer to answer the door, Ryan watched a bakery owner frustratedly scroll through hundreds of spreadsheet rows. The owner sighed and said, "There has to be an easier way." Those words stayed in Ryan's mind all day. That night, after finishing his warehouse shift, he opened his laptop and wrote a simple question at the top of a blank page. What if inventory management could be as easy as using a phone? He started sketching ideas, simple buttons, automatic updates, real-time stock tracking, sales reports, no complicated menus, no expensive subscriptions. Something that even the smallest business could afford. Ryan knew he couldn't hire developers, he couldn't rent an office, he couldn't pay a design team. So he decided to build everything himself. Every night he coded until sunrise. Every morning he went back to delivering food. Coffee became his breakfast. Instant noodles became dinner. Weeks turned into months. Sometimes he spent 10 hours trying to fix one small bug. Sometimes the entire program crashed and erased days of work. More than once he wanted to quit, but every time he remembered the number written in his notebook. 1, 0, 0 after 8 months. The first version was finally ready. It wasn't beautiful, the colors didn't match, the loading screen was slow, several buttons didn't work properly. Sometimes the system suddenly logged users out. Ryan laughed at his own mistakes. It doesn't have to be perfect, he whispered. It just has to help someone. He emailed hundreds of small businesses. Most never replied. Some immediately deleted the message. A few politely said they weren't interested. After 2 weeks, only 5 companies agreed to try the software. His first customers were a local bakery, a bicycle repair shop, a small clothing store, a pet supply business, and a family-owned coffee shop. Ryan called each owner personally. He asked what they liked. He asked what they hated. He wrote every suggestion into a notebook. One owner complained that reports were too slow. Ryan fixed them the same night. Another wanted automatic low stock alerts. Ryan added the feature before sunrise. A coffee shop owner requested a mobile version. Ryan spent an entire weekend building it. Every week the software became a little better. The 5 customers recommended it to friends. 5 became 12. 12 became 30. 30 became 80. For the first time in over a year, Ryan received a payment notification that wasn't a debt reminder. It was a customer subscription. Then another and another. The amount wasn't large, but seeing money come in instead of go out gave him something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Every evening, after updating the software, Ryan opened the notebook that had traveled with him through debt, sleepless nights, and failure. Below the words, "One day I will turn 100 into 100, 00, he added a new sentence: "It starts with 1 customer." He closed the notebook, looked at the growing list of subscribers, and smiled. For the first time since losing everything, Ryan felt that he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building something new. One evening, after finishing another 12-hour workday, Ryan sat alone in his tiny apartment. The room was silent except for the sound of rain hitting the window. His software finally worked well. His customers were happy, but there was one problem. Almost nobody knew it existed. He opened his analytics dashboard. Visitors today, 18 new customers, 0. Ryan leaned back in his chair and smiled. I can build a successful company if nobody knows about it. Instead of spending money on advertising that he couldn't afford, he picked up his phone. He placed it on top of a stack of books and pressed record. For 3 minutes, he explained a simple idea. He showed how a small business owner could replace complicated spreadsheets with his software and save hours of work every week. There were no special effects, no expensive camera, no professional lighting. Just Ryan, a whiteboard, and his laptop. He uploaded the video and went to sleep. The next morning, his phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Hundreds of notifications appeared every minute. At first he thought something was wrong. Then he opened the app. The video had reached 500 views overnight. An hour later it passed 2 million. By lunchtime it reached 8 million. By the end of the day, 20 million people had watched it. Business owners from every state shared the video. Entrepreneurs posted it on social media. Marketing pages reacted to it. Popular creators explained why Ryan's software was different. His website suddenly received more visitors than it had received in the previous year combined. The server couldn't handle the traffic. The website crashed. Ryan spent the entire night fixing problems. Every time he restarted the system, thousands of new people joined the waiting list. His email inbox exploded. Questions arrived from restaurants, retail stores, coffee shops, gyms, bookstores, online sellers, even companies from Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Germany wanted demonstrations. For the first time since losing everything, Ryan couldn't keep up with demand. Every few seconds another notification appeared. New subscription, new subscription, new subscription. He refreshed the dashboard. 100 customers, 500, 1,000, 3,000. By the end of the week, more than 60 businesses had joined the platform. By the end of the month, that number exceeded 10 companies. Ryan opened his financial report with shaking hands. Monthly recurring revenue had increased from just a few $1,000s to hundreds of thousands. For the first time since his bankruptcy, his company was profitable. He quietly walked outside and sat on the steps of the building where he had once worried about losing everything. 6 months earlier, he had been delivering food on the same streets. Now people were sharing his business videos with millions of viewers. His phone rang. It was his accountant. For a moment, Ryan expected another problem. Instead, she laughed. Ryan, what happened? She took a deep breath. For the first time since we started working together, we made more money than we spent. Ryan looked at the city lights and smiled. No celebration, no luxury dinner, no expensive car. He simply closed his eyes and enjoyed something he hadn't felt in years. Relief. But deep inside, He knew this was only the beginning. 10,000 customers were trusting his product. The real challenge was making sure they would never regret that decision. Instead of buying luxury cars or a big apartment, Ryan invested every dollar back into the company. He hired talented engineers and expanded into Europe, Asia, and South America. Within 3 years, more than 500 businesses were using his platform. Major investment firms wanted to buy shares. Ryan finally paid off the last dollar of his 100 debt. For the first time in years, he owed nothing. But Ryan refused to celebrate. While other founders spent millions on mansions and private jets, he still arrived at the office wearing the same simple hoodie and carrying the same backpack he had owned since his difficult days. His employees often joked that the CEO looked like an intern. Ryan just smiled. Every Monday morning he walked through the office, greeting everyone by name. He remembered what it felt like to work alone. He never wanted anyone on his team to feel invisible. The company continued growing faster than anyone expected. New customers signed up every minute. Restaurants used the platform. Bookstores, retail chains, coffee shops, online stores, warehouses, even large corporations started replacing expensive legacy software with Ryan's system. The engineering team grew from 5 people to 50, then 100, then 300. The company opened offices in New York, London, Singapore, and Sao Paulo. Support became available in more than 20 languages. Every update made the platform faster and easier to use. Customers stayed longer and recommended it to others. Revenue doubled, then doubled again. Financial news channels started talking about the company every week. Business magazines placed Ryan on their covers. The same investors who had once rejected him were now waiting outside his office. One after another, famous investment firms offered hundreds of millions of dollars for a share of the business. One investor said, "We were ready to invest $50 million today." Ryan politely replied, "Thank you, but we were still building." Another offered even more. Ryan gave the same answer. He believed that solving customer problems was more important than chasing headlines. One afternoon, Ryan received an email from his accountant. The subject line contained only 4 words. Final loan payment processed. He opened the attachment. The balance on the screen read, business loan, 0, credit line, 0, total debt, 0. Ryan stared at the numbers for a long time. He remembered the nights he had slept on an office couch, the instant noodles, the rejected job applications, the warehouse shifts, the food deliveries, the endless phone calls from collection agencies. Every difficult moment suddenly felt very far away. His accountant walked into the office holding a small cake. There were no reporters, no cameras, only a few employees who knew how much that moment meant. Everyone applauded as Ryan clicked the final payment confirmation. He didn't make a speech. He simply said, 3 years ago, debt controlled my life. Today, discipline changed it. That evening he visited the small shared apartment where he had once lived. The building looked exactly the same. The old mailbox, the narrow staircase, the tiny room where he had written code on a cardboard box instead of a desk. He stood outside for several minutes and smiled. Success had changed his bank account, but it hadn't changed the promise he made to himself when he had nothing. Before leaving, he opened the notebook he still carried everywhere. On the first page were the words he had written years earlier. One day I will turn 1, 0, 0 into 100, 0. For the first time, he crossed out the minus sign and quietly closed the notebook. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was only getting started. 5 years after losing everything, a global technology corporation offered to buy his company. The deal was worth $180 million. After taxes and expenses, Ryan's personal fortune exceeded $100 million. The same newspapers that once called him a failure now published headlines from 1 million to 100 million. Business schools invited him to speak. Millions watched his interviews. But Ryan still remembered every difficult day. One Monday morning, his assistant walked into the office carrying a black folder. "There are 3 acquisition offers waiting for your decision," she said. Ryan opened the first proposal, offer 120, 0. He closed it. The second company offered even more, offer 145,000, he thanked them and declined again. Then he opened the final proposal. One of the world's largest technology corporations wanted to acquire the platform and expand it globally. The offer was simple: 180,000. The meeting lasted almost 8 hours. Lawyers reviewed every page. Financial advisors checked every number. Investors discussed future plans. Ryan remained quiet. Finally, the CEO of the corporation looked at him and asked, "So do we have a deal?" Ryan smiled. 5 years earlier, he had been worried about buying groceries. Now he was deciding whether to sell a company that millions of businesses used every day. He picked up the pen and signed his name. The room immediately filled with applause. People shook his hand. Cameras flashed from every direction. Outside the building, reporters had already gathered. Within minutes, financial news channels around the world announced the acquisition. The next morning, Ryan opened his banking application. For a few seconds, the screen failed to load. Then the number appeared. Available balance: 109,483,271. 56. Ryan quietly stared at the screen. No excitement, no shouting, no celebration, just silence. He remembered another morning years earlier when he had opened the same app and seen only 427.81 while carrying 100 in debt. The difference wasn't just the money. It was everything he had survived to get there. By the afternoon, every major business newspaper had published the same story. Entrepreneur turns 1 million debt into 100 million fortune. Television channels invited him for interviews. Universities asked him to give lectures. Business schools turned his journey into a case study. Thousands of young entrepreneurs stood in line just to hear him speak. During one conference, a student asked, "What was the best business decision you ever made?" Many people expected Ryan to mention the software or the viral video or the 180 million deal. Instead, he smiled and answered, "The best decision I ever made happened when I had nothing. It was the moment I stopped feeling sorry for myself and started learning one new skill every single day." The audience became completely silent. Ryan continued, "Money didn't change my life. Habits did. When I had $1 million in debt, I couldn't control the economy, investors, or luck. But I could control whether I woke up and worked again tomorrow." The room erupted into applause. That evening, Ryan returned to his office for the last time. Most of the employees had already gone home. He walked through the empty halls and stopped in front of a framed photo on the wall. It showed the company as first team. Just 5 people working in a tiny room with old laptops. He smiled. The company was now worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but its foundation had been built with sleepless nights, cheap coffee, rejected ideas, and a promise written in a notebook. As he turned off the lights and closed the office door, Ryan realized something. The 100 million was never the greatest achievement. The greatest achievement was becoming the kind of person who could rebuild everything after losing it all. During a live interview, a young student asked, "What changed your life?" Ryan smiled. It wasn't the $1 million deal. It wasn't the $100 million. It was the night I had only $312 in my bank account, $1 million in debt, and still decided to wake up the next morning and keep working. The audience stood and applauded. Ryan looked at the crowd and added one final sentence: "Success doesn't begin when you become rich. It begins the moment you refuse to quit." For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then the entire auditorium filled with applause. Some people were smiling. Others were quietly wiping tears from their eyes. After the interview ended, dozens of students surrounded Ryan. One young entrepreneur asked, "Weren't you afraid of failing again?" Ryan laughed softly. "Every single day, I wasn't fearless. I was just more afraid of giving up than of failing." Another student asked, "If you lost everything tomorrow, what would you do?" Ryan didn't even think before answering. "I would start again. Money can disappear, companies can fail, but knowledge, experience, discipline, and persistence stay with you forever." The answer quickly spread across social media. Millions of people shared the clip. People who had lost jobs, people struggling with debt, people trying to start businesses, people chasing impossible dreams. Many wrote that Ryan's story gave them hope. Months later, Ryan launched a scholarship program for young entrepreneurs who couldn't afford business education. Every year, he invested millions of dollars into small startups created by students with big ideas but limited resources. When reporters asked why he was giving away so much money, Ryan smiled. "Years ago, someone gave me advice when I had nothing. They believed in me before I believed in myself. Now it is my turn." One evening, after another conference, Ryan walked alone through the city. Luxury cars passed by. People recognized him and asked for photos. But instead of driving home, he stopped in front of an old warehouse. It was the same place where he had once worked night shifts carrying heavy boxes. The building looked exactly the same. He stood there for a long moment and remembered the exhausted young man who worked all night and studied programming before sunrise. That man had no investors, no success, no certainty, only a dream written in a notebook. Ryan reached into his bag and pulled out that same notebook. The pages had become worn and faded over the years. On the first page, the words were still there. "One day I will turn 100 into 100. Below it, he wrote one final sentence. "The hardest part was never making $100 million. The hardest part was believing I could when I had nothing." He closed the notebook and looked up at the night sky. His journey had started with debt, fear, rejection, and sleepless nights. It ended with success, freedom, and the chance to help others. And whenever people asked Ryan Walker for the secret of becoming successful, he always answered with the same simple words: "Don't let your current situation decide your future. One decision, one skill, and one more day of effort can change everything." That became the lesson people remembered long after they forgot the numbers. Not the 100 of debt, not the 100 fortune, but the ordinary young man who refused to quit when everyone else believed he already had.